The first signs came in the form of silence. On a routine morning at the SETI Institute's Allen Telescope Array, Dr. Isabella Romano noticed something odd. The usual cosmic background radiation had completely disappeared from certain segments of space. Within hours, similar reports flooded in from observatories worldwide. The stars themselves seemed to be vanishing. Director James Harrison of NASA stood before the hastily assembled panel of world leaders, his normally steady hands trembling as he pointed to the latest satellite imagery. "They're not ships in the conventional sense," he explained, his voice tight with controlled fear. "They're more like mobile cities, each one larger than Manhattan. We've counted 7 of them so far, arranged in a perfect heptagon around Earth's orbit." The alien vessels had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, their massive forms blocking out entire constellations. Their surfaces rippled like liquid metal, absorbing all radiation that touched them, radar, radio waves, even light itself. They were cosmic black holes, moving with impossible precision. Admiral Victoria Blackwood, commander of the United States Space Force, leaned forward in her chair at the Pentagon's secure briefing room. "How long until they reach Earth's atmosphere?" The question hung heavy in the air, weighted with unspoken implications. "At their current velocity?" Harrison swallowed hard. "Approximately 47 hours. The room erupted in hushed whispers until a sharp crack silenced them, the sound of General Richard Kumar's palm striking the oak table. "We need to establish contact before they enter our atmosphere. Every nuclear-capable nation is already on high alert. One misunderstanding could trigger a panic response that dooms us all." As if in answer to his concerns, every electronic device on Earth simultaneously activated. Phones, computers, televisions, radio receivers, all broadcast the same message in perfect, accentless English: "People of Earth, your species has been monitored since the detonation of your first atomic weapon. Your technological progress has exceeded your moral development. You will surrender control of all nuclear facilities within 72 hours. Resistance will result in immediate planetary quarantine. Your compliance is appreciated." The message repeated in every known human language, its tone neither threatening nor friendly, simply matter of fact. The aliens weren't making threats, they were stating policy. In the chaos that followed, it was Dr. Romano who first noticed something peculiar about the transmission. "The syntax," she muttered, reviewing the message for the 100th time in her cluttered office at SETI. "It's too perfect, too mathematical." She began writing algorithms to analyze the linguistic patterns, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards as she worked. Meanwhile, in orbit, Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel aboard the International Space Station had a front-row view of the visitors. "Houston," his voice crackled through the comm system, "these ships, they're changing. The surface patterns are shifting, like they're breathing." His observation would prove crucial in the hours to come. On the ground, humanity's response was anything but unified. Some nations immediately announced their intention to comply with the aliens' demands. Others began mobilizing their military forces, despite the futility of conventional weapons against vessels of such size and technological sophistication. In Washington, D.C., Admiral Blackwood faced off against the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "We can't simply hand over our nuclear deterrent to an unknown alien force," she argued, her voice steady despite the exhaustion evident on her face. "Even if we wanted to comply, the logistics of securing and transferring control of every nuclear facility worldwide in 72 hours is impossible." "Then we need alternatives," General Kumar responded, his expression grim. "Because right now, we're looking at either submission or extinction." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Romano, after 36 sleepless hours, discovered something in the alien transmission that changed everything. The message wasn't just a communication, it was a complex mathematical equation, hidden within the very structure of the language itself. "Look at this," she explained to the Emergency Scientific Council, her hands shaking from too much coffee and too little sleep. "The message repeats in exactly 2,744 languages, but the pattern of transmission isn't linear. It's a Fibonacci sequence, and embedded within it is what appears to be a complete mathematical proof, one that contradicts itself. Professor William Nash, a renowned theoretical physicist, leaned forward, his eyes widening as he reviewed her findings. "This isn't just a message," he whispered. "It's a test." As the 72-hour deadline approached, humanity faced its greatest challenge. The alien vessels maintained their perfect heptagon formation, their surfaces still rippling like mercury under the sun. But now, thanks to Dr. Romano's discovery, Earth scientists began to understand what they were really seeing. The ships weren't weapons of war or tools of conquest, they were instruments of evaluation. The mathematical contradiction hidden in their message wasn't a mistake, it was a challenge. The aliens weren't demanding surrender, they were testing humanity's ability to recognize and respond to complex patterns. Admiral Blackwood, reviewing the findings with her team, came to a decisive conclusion. "We're not going to surrender," she announced to the Joint Chiefs. "We're going to answer their riddle. And we're going to do it in a way that proves we deserve our independence." As the world held its breath, a new message was prepared, one that would either save humanity or condemn it. The response would need to demonstrate not just intelligence, but wisdom. Not just defiance, but understanding. The clock was ticking, and the stars themselves seemed to watch and wait for humanity's next move. Time was running out. In the basement of the Pentagon, Dr. Isabella Romano and Professor Nash had converted a conference room into a makeshift research center. Holographic displays flickered across every wall, showing the continuous analysis of the alien message's mathematical structure. They had less than 24 hours left before the deadline. "The contradiction in their equation," Nash muttered, his weathered hands tracing patterns in the air, "it's not just a logical paradox. It's a key to understanding their entire communication protocol." He turned to Admiral Blackwood, who had just entered the room. "They're not using traditional binary or quantum computing. Their entire system appears to be based on something we might call wave-state logic." Lieutenant Commander Patel's voice crackled through the speakers from the ISS. "The surface patterns on the ships are changing again. They're becoming more synchronized." The feed from the space station showed the alien vessels pulsing in perfect harmony, their liquid metal surfaces reflecting distorted images of Earth below. Dr. Romano's eyes suddenly widened. She rushed to a terminal, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "That's it. The ships aren't just communicating, they're resonating. The mathematical paradox in their message matches the frequency pattern of their hull oscillations." General Kumar, who had been silently observing from the corner, stepped forward. "Explain it to me like I'm not a physicist." Nash took over, his eyes bright with understanding. "Imagine a choir singing in perfect harmony. Now imagine that the harmony itself contains a question. The aliens aren't just asking us if we can understand their language, they're testing if we can join their chorus. And how exactly do we do that?" Admiral Blackwood asked, her voice tight with controlled urgency. Dr. Romano pulled up a new display, showing a complex wave pattern. "We need to broadcast a response that matches their resonance frequency but introduces a deliberate variation, one that resolves the paradox in their original equation. It's like completing a musical phrase they've left intentionally unfinished." Meanwhile, across the globe, other discoveries were being made. In Beijing, Dr. Lin Wei had independently identified a pattern in the aliens' positioning around Earth. In Moscow, Dr. Dmitry Volkov's team had detected subtle gravitational anomalies that suggested the ships were somehow manipulating spacetime itself. When these findings were shared with the Pentagon team, a fuller picture began to emerge. The aliens' test wasn't just mathematical, it was comprehensive. They were evaluating humanity's ability to recognize patterns across multiple scientific disciplines simultaneously. "Look at this," Professor Nash pointed to a new simulation. "If we combine Dr. Lin's geometric analysis with Dr. Volkov's gravitational readings, we can see that the ships aren't just arranged in a heptagon, they're creating a multidimensional resonance chamber with Earth at its center. Admiral Blackwood's expression hardened. They're not threatening to quarantine Earth. They're already doing it. The question is, what happens when their chamber is fully formed? The answer came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Commander Patel, still watching from orbit, noticed something crucial. The stars, his voice was urgent through the static. We can see them again, but only through specific angles between the ships. It's like they're creating windows. Dr. Romano spun to her computer, cross-referencing Patel's observation with their existing data. He's right. The aliens aren't blocking our view of the universe, they're filtering it. The gaps between their ships align perfectly with specific celestial coordinates. Coordinates that what? General Kumar demanded. That matched the Fibonacci sequence in their original message, she finished, her voice barely a whisper. They're showing us a map. Not just of space, but of their entire communication network. The implications were staggering. The aliens weren't simply testing humanity's scientific understanding, they were offering a glimpse of something much larger. Their 7 ships were nodes in a vast interstellar network, and Earth was being evaluated for potential inclusion. Professor Nash began calculating frantically. If we can match their resonance frequency and simultaneously demonstrate our understanding of the network's geometry. He paused, looking up with a mix of fear and excitement. We might be able to do more than just respond to their message. We might be able to peek behind the curtain, see what they're not showing us. Admiral Blackwood straightened, her decision made. Do it. Whatever resources you need, whatever personnel, you have them. But remember, we've got less than 20 hours before their deadline expires. As the team worked through the night, a new possibility emerged. The aliens' test wasn't just about proving humanity's intelligence or technological capability. It was about demonstrating our ability to recognize and respond to patterns that crossed the boundaries between different scientific disciplines. They wanted to see if we could think holistically, seeing connections that transcended our traditional divisions of knowledge. The question was, could humanity rise to this challenge in time? And more importantly, what would we find if we succeeded in penetrating the aliens' network? The answer would change our understanding of not just alien life, but of the universe itself. The plan came together in the pre-dawn hours, fueled by desperation and brilliance in equal measure. The Pentagon's makeshift command center had become a nexus of global cooperation, with scientists from every continent contributing via secure channels. Time had become a tangible thing, pressing down on them all as the deadline approached. We'll need to coordinate with every major radio telescope on the planet, Dr. Romano explained, her voice hoarse from endless hours of discussion. The resonance pattern has to be perfect, or this won't work. Behind her, holographic displays showed the positions of radio telescopes from Arecibo to Parkes, each one represented by a glowing point of light. Professor Nash, who hadn't slept in nearly 40 hours, was coordinating with Dr. Lin in Beijing and Dr. Volkov in Moscow. The timing has to be precise, he insisted. When we broadcast our response, it needs to hit all 7 ships simultaneously. If we're even a millisecond off, the wave pattern will collapse. Admiral Blackwood surveyed the room, her military bearing unchanged despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. How many facilities are we talking about? 37 major radio telescopes, Dr. Romano answered. Plus every deep space communication dish we can bring online. We're also tapping into the global network of amateur radio operators to create a planetary-scale antenna array. In orbit, Lieutenant Commander Patel had been tasked with the most dangerous part of the operation. The International Space Station's position provided a unique vantage point, and a crucial transmission location. The station's solar arrays have been reconfigured, he reported. We're ready to channel all available power into the communication burst. The plan they had developed was audacious. Instead of simply responding to the aliens' mathematical challenge, they would use Earth's combined broadcasting capability to create a resonance field that matched the aliens' own. The message would be encoded in the very structure of the field itself, a demonstration that humanity could not only understand their technology but adapt and use it. General Kumar, who had been coordinating with military commands worldwide, stepped forward. All nations with orbital capabilities have confirmed their participation. Even North Korea is on board. For the first time in human history, we're about to act as one species, with one purpose. The countdown began. Across the globe, power grids were reconfigured to channel energy to the broadcast sites. The world's most powerful supercomputers worked in parallel, coordinating the timing down to the microsecond. In space, the alien ships continued their eerily synchronized pulsing, maintaining their perfect heptagon formation. T-60 minutes, announced the mission controller. The room fell silent, each person acutely aware of their role in humanity's greatest gambit. Dr. Romano and Professor Nash made their final adjustments to the transmission sequence. The message they had crafted was both an answer and a question, a response to the aliens' mathematical paradox that demonstrated not just understanding, but innovation. They had taken the aliens' wave-state logic and expanded upon it, creating something entirely new. "You realize what we're actually doing, don't you?" Nash murmured to Romano. "We're not just sending a message. We're rewriting the laws of mathematics." She nodded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Mathematics is the universal language. We're showing them that we can speak it, and that we have something new to say." At T-30 minutes, an unexpected complication arose. The aliens' ships began changing their resonance pattern, shifting to a new frequency that threatened to disrupt the carefully planned response. "They're testing us again," Lieutenant Commander Patel observed from the ISS. "The pattern isn't random, it's evolving. They want to see if we can adapt in real time." Admiral Blackwood turned to the science team. "Can you compensate?" Dr. Romano was already moving, her hands flying over the controls. "We built flexibility into the system. The supercomputer network can adjust our broadcast frequency to match their changes. But we'll need to modify the entire transmission sequence on the fly." "Do it," Blackwood ordered. "Whatever it takes." The next 20 minutes were a blur of frantic activity as teams worldwide recalibrated their equipment. The amateur radio operators, thousands of them spread across the planet, proved invaluable, their distributed network providing the adaptability needed to track the aliens' changing signals. At T-5 minutes, everything was ready. The power grid hummed with contained energy, ready to be channeled into the largest coordinated broadcast in human history. In orbit, Lieutenant Commander Patel reported that the ISS's systems were at maximum capacity. Broadcasting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The world lit up. Every radio telescope, every communication dish, every amateur radio antenna began transmitting simultaneously. The signal they created wasn't just powerful, it was precise, a perfect harmonic resonance that matched and complemented the aliens' own transmission. In space, the effect was immediate and stunning. The liquid metal surfaces of the alien ships began rippling more rapidly, their synchronized patterns shifting in response to humanity's broadcast. The gaps between the ships, the windows they had created in space, began to shimmer with new light. Through it all, Dr. Romano watched the incoming data with intense concentration. "The resonance field is stable," she reported. "They're receiving our message. Now we wait to see if they understand what we're really saying." The next few minutes would determine the fate of humanity. They had done more than just respond to the aliens' test, they had demonstrated creativity, adaptability, and unity on a global scale. The question was, would it be enough? The first response came not as a message, but as light. The space between the alien ships erupted in a spectacular display of colors that defied the normal laws of physics. The ISS's sensors were momentarily overwhelmed, and Lieutenant Commander Patel's transmission cut out entirely. "Energy readings are off the scale," Professor Nash announced, his eyes fixed on the incoming data. "They're not just responding to our broadcast, they're amplifying it." The holographic displays in the Pentagon Command Center showed a cascade of numbers that seemed to defy conventional mathematics. Dr. Romano's hands flew across her console as she analyzed the pattern. "This isn't a rejection," she breathed, her voice filled with wonder. "It's an invitation. They're showing us how to expand the resonance field." Admiral Blackwood leaned forward, her expression tense. "Expand it to what?" Before anyone could answer, the alien ships began to move. Their perfect heptagon formation shifted, each vessel rotating in perfect synchronization. The liquid metal of their hulls flowed like quicksilver, creating new patterns that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around them. "The windows." Lieutenant Commander Patel's voice suddenly crackled back through the comm system. "They're getting bigger. I can see something through them." His voice trailed off in awe. Through the expanding gaps between the ships, Earth's observers caught glimpses of impossible things. Stars that shouldn't have been visible from Earth's position. Celestial phenomena that defied current astronomical understanding. It was as if the aliens were pulling back a curtain to reveal the true nature of the universe. General Kumar's voice cut through the wonder. "Are we in danger? Could this be a prelude to an attack?" Dr. Romano shook her head, her eyes never leaving the data streams. "No, this is different. Remember the mathematical paradox in their original message? What we're seeing now is its resolution. They're showing us how our solution fits into a larger framework." Professor Nash suddenly straightened, his tired eyes widening. "Isabella, look at these quantum readings. The resonance field isn't just connecting us to their ships, it's creating a stable quantum entanglement network. We're becoming part of something much bigger." In orbit, the International Space Station had become humanity's front-row seat to the unfolding cosmic drama. Lieutenant Commander Patel continued to transmit his observations, his voice filled with a mix of fear and excitement. "The space between the ships, it's like looking through windows into different parts of the galaxy." "No, not windows, doors." Dr. Lin's voice came through from Beijing, adding to the growing chorus of scientific observations. "The geometric pattern they're creating, it's a hyperdimensional structure. They're showing us how to bend space itself." As the alien ships continued their careful dance, Earth's combined broadcast network began receiving new data. It came in pulses that matched the rhythm they had created, but it contained information that went far beyond simple mathematics. Star charts, physical constants, and technological principles poured in, each piece of information building on humanity's existing knowledge while gently correcting its errors. "This was never about surrendering our nuclear weapons," Admiral Blackwood realized, her voice quiet. "They needed to know if we could handle this kind of knowledge responsibly. The deadline was part of the test, they wanted to see how we'd react under pressure." The data transfer continued, but it wasn't one way. The aliens were also accepting the modifications and innovations that humanity had introduced into the resonance field. It was becoming a true dialogue, conducted in the language of physics and mathematics. Dr. Romano, who had been quietly analyzing the incoming data, suddenly gasped. "They're not alone," she announced. "These transmission protocols, they're designed to interface with multiple species, multiple forms of intelligence. What we're being invited to join, it's a network of civilizations." Professor Nash nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his tired face. The 7 ships, the mathematical puzzles, the resonance patterns, they're all part of a standard first contact protocol. A way of evaluating new species while simultaneously preparing them for integration into a larger community. In the hours that followed, humanity began to grasp the true scope of what was happening. The aliens hadn't come to conquer or to threaten, they had come to evaluate and, if warranted, to welcome. Their test had been designed not just to measure human intelligence, but to assess our capacity for unity, creativity, and peaceful cooperation. The original deadline passed unmentioned as Earth's scientists worked to understand the wealth of knowledge being shared. The alien ships maintained their new configuration, the gaps between them now serving as stable windows into different sectors of space. Through these windows, humanity caught its first glimpses of other civilizations, other worlds, other possibilities. But with this knowledge came responsibility. The aliens' message was clear: humanity had proven itself worthy of joining a larger cosmic community, but our continued participation would depend on how we used this new understanding. The choice, and the consequences, would be ours. 1 year after first contact, Earth had changed in ways that would have seemed impossible before. The Pentagon's makeshift command center had evolved into the Global Exchange Center, a hub of international cooperation where scientists from every nation work together to understand and implement the knowledge shared by the galactic community. Dr. Isabella Romano stood at the center's main observation deck, watching as the first human-built vessel utilizing the new resonance technology prepared for its maiden voyage. The ship's hull shimmered with the same liquid metal properties they had first observed in the alien vessels, now recreated through humanity's growing understanding of quantum engineering. "Ready for the big moment?" Professor Nash asked, joining her at the window. The past year had aged him, but his eyes still sparkled with the same enthusiasm that had helped save humanity. "Hard to believe we've come this far," she replied, checking the final calculations on her tablet. The ship below, christened Unity, represented humanity's first step toward true spacefaring capability. Its crew, drawn from 20 different nations, symbolized Earth's new spirit of cooperation. Admiral Blackwood, now serving as the director of the International Space Initiative, entered the room with Lieutenant Commander Patel, recently promoted after his crucial role during first contact. "All systems are go," she announced. "The resonance field is stable, and our alien observers have confirmed that the quantum entanglement network is ready to receive Unity's signal." The alien ships that had first appeared over Earth were long gone, replaced by a single, smaller vessel that served as an embassy and observation post. Through the windows they had opened in space, humanity had begun learning about its galactic neighbors, civilizations that had faced their own tests and chosen paths of cooperation over conflict. General Kumar, who had transitioned from military leadership to diplomatic service, joined the group. "The Council of Nations has just finished their session," he reported. "The vote was unanimous. We're ready to accept full membership in the Galactic Exchange." Professor Nash smiled. "Remember when we thought they were here to take our nuclear weapons? Turns out they were offering us something far more powerful, a chance to grow up as a species." The past year had seen remarkable changes. The knowledge shared through the quantum network had revolutionized human understanding of physics, medicine, and environmental science. Clean energy technology had begun replacing fossil fuels. Diseases once thought incurable were yielding to new treatments. But perhaps most importantly, the prospect of joining a larger cosmic community had given humanity a new sense of purpose and unity. "Unity, you are cleared for launch," Admiral Blackwood announced into the comm system. "Make us proud." Below, the ship's resonance field activated, creating a subtle distortion in the air around its hull. Unlike traditional rocket launches, this departure would be almost silent. The ship would slip through one of the stable spacetime corridors that the aliens had helped humanity learn to create, emerging near Jupiter's orbit for its first test of long-range quantum navigation. Dr. Romano watched the launch preparations with mixed emotions. She had been chosen to lead the next phase of human expansion, the establishment of Earth's first extrasolar research station. The alien network had identified a promising location, a star system with conditions remarkably similar to Earth's. "Having second thoughts?" Patel asked, noting her expression. She shook her head. "Just thinking about how far we've come. A year ago, we were afraid they were here to destroy us. Now we're about to join them among the stars." The launch countdown began. Unity's hull began to pulse with patterns similar to those they had first observed on the alien ships, creating a resonance field that would allow it to interact with the quantum network. The mathematics that had once seemed paradoxical now formed the basis of humanity's new understanding of space travel. 10 seconds to corridor formation," announced the mission controller. Quantum entanglement stable. Resonance field at optimal frequency. As Unity prepared to make history, Dr. Romano reflected on the true nature of the test humanity had faced. It had never been just about solving a mathematical puzzle or demonstrating technological capability. The aliens had wanted to see if humanity could overcome its divisions and work together when faced with an existential challenge. The deadline, the threat of quarantine, all had been carefully calculated to push Earth toward either conflict or cooperation. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1. Unity disappeared in a flash of light that seemed to bend around itself, leaving behind only a slight ripple in the air. Moments later, confirmation came through the quantum network: the ship had successfully emerged at its designated coordinates near Jupiter. Applause erupted in the control room, but it was quickly silenced by an incoming transmission. Through one of the space-time windows, a new signal was being received. Another civilization had just passed its own first contact test, and Earth was being invited to send representatives to welcome them into the galactic community. Admiral Blackwood turned to Dr. Romano with a smile. "Well, Professor? Ready to help another species take their first steps into a larger universe?" As humanity prepared to take on its new role as guides and teachers, the true meaning of first contact became clear. The aliens hadn't simply been testing Earth's readiness to join their community, they had been preparing humanity to help build that community's future. Unity's successful launch marked more than just a technological achievement. It represented humanity's graduation from a species focused on its own survival to one ready to take its place in the grand symphony of cosmic civilization. The stars, once distant points of light, had become doorways to humanity's future.